And now to a crime alert today in Tamarack. Authorities are trying to solve a murder mystery. A woman was found dead in her home earlier this week.
And you your front row seat to justice if you are just joining us.
And we kick off this hour in the state of Georgia.
In a News 3 follow-up, a Rincon woman is behind bars tonight.
A mother shot nearly a dozen times.
What y'all doing? Can you roll the window down for me? Can you roll the window down for me?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Truly Criminal Network.
Bullets and surveillance
Anybody who knew Sade knew that she was different from everybody else. She went through a lot even before she died. She never let it break her.
Me and my family would never be okay. Imagine trying to bury your niece with nobody for the service.
She was the strongest person I know.
She was my best friend. I will miss her. We had so much happiness and fun together. And she did not deserve to be taken like this.
A 414 area code called me. My heart would start palpitating because I didn't know what was going on.
Justice for Sade!
New at 10, new details have surfaced in the high-profile murder and dismemberment of a young Milwaukee woman. Prosecutors say Maxwell Anderson killed 19-year-old Sade Robinson after their first date in April. The unsealing of 8 search warrants shows surveillance footage of Robinson on a date with Anderson at the Twisted Fisherman in the Menominee Valley. That was the last time she was seen alive. Anderson remains in custody on $5 million bail. He is due to stand trial in December for first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson.
A severed human leg washing ashore at Warnemont Park, a torso discovered miles away, an arm found in a separate location, a foot recovered elsewhere. In April 2024, Milwaukee residents made these horrific discoveries over several days, all body parts belonging to the same person. Her name was Sade Robinson, just 19 years old, a criminal justice student who wanted to join the Air Force, a daughter who texted her mother daily, the victim of what should have been an ordinary first date. What happened to Sade Robinson stands as one of the most disturbing crimes in Milwaukee's recent history. Not just because of the shocking manner in which her body was dismembered and scattered across the city, but because of how easily it could have been prevented. Because Maxwell Anderson, the 33-year-old man who took her life, wasn't a stranger who attacked her in a dark alley. He wasn't someone who broke into her home. He was someone she chose to meet, someone she thought she could trust, someone who presented himself as a nice, normal guy. But as you'll see, nothing about Maxwell Anderson or what he did that night was normal. Born on May 10, 2004, in Vicksburg, Mississippi, Sade moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin with her mother, Sheena Scarborough, during early childhood. Her loved ones described her as vibrant, kind, and ambitious, a young woman whose radiant personality left an impression on everyone she met. Sade's childhood involved moving between Wisconsin and Florida, where her father, Carlos Robinson, lived. Though her parents weren't married, they maintained a cooperative relationship focused on supporting their daughter's growth and dreams. By the time she reached her late teens, Sade had built something remarkable, a life defined by independence and purpose. She graduated high school early and immediately enrolled at Milwaukee Area Technical College, pursuing an associate degree in criminal justice. Her academic path wasn't random. Sade came from a family with military connections. Her grandfather served in the U.S. Navy and an uncle in the Army. Following this tradition, she set her sights on joining the Air Force after completing her studies. Friends say she researched the requirements extensively and spoke often about her plans for service. What makes Sade's story particularly compelling is how she balanced her ambitions with everyday responsibilities. She worked 2 jobs, as a cashier at Pizza Shuttle and at the Wisconsin Club, while attending college full-time. Co-workers remember her cheerful attitude despite long hours and demanding customers. She never complained. One former colleague told investigators, "She just showed up, did the work, and made everyone around her feel better." This self-sufficiency extended to her personal life. Sade lived independently in her own apartment, managed her finances, and still found time for small joys, cooking seafood for her grandmother, planning trips to Jamaica and Atlanta, sharing jokes and photos with friends. The color pink became her signature. Her phone case was pink. Her favorite clothes featured pink. After her death, the color became a symbol of remembrance, with community members wearing it to honor her memory. On April 1st, 2024, Sade made a choice that millions of young people make every day. She agreed to meet someone she'd connected with on a dating app. She told a trusted employee at her apartment building about her plans. She was excited. This date was just another step in her social life, nothing that seemed out of the ordinary. She had no way of knowing that within 24 hours, search parties would be looking for her. That within 48 hours, pieces of her body would begin appearing across Milwaukee. That her car would be found burned. That her phone would go silent forever. She had no way of knowing that Maxwell Anderson had other plans for their evening together. Before we continue with Sade's story, I want to address why we're telling it. At Truly Criminal Network, we don't share these accounts to exploit tragedy or sensationalize violence. We share them because understanding what happened to Sade Robinson and others like her might save lives. If you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, take a moment to join our community. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Your support allows us to continue documenting these important stories and creating awareness that could prevent future tragedies. Now let's return to April 1st, 2024, and trace the events of Sade Robinson's final day, hour by hour, message by message, and camera by camera, as she prepared for what she thought would be a normal first date. April 1st, 2024 marked the beginning of a new month for Milwaukee residents. For Sade Robinson, it was supposed to be nothing more than a first date with a man she'd met through a dating app, Maxwell Anderson, 33. The day started routinely for Sade. According to records and witness statements, she attended her classes at Milwaukee Area Technical College, where she was working toward her associate degree in criminal justice. After class, she returned to her apartment to prepare for her evening plans. What we know about her preparations comes from multiple sources. A building employee at Sade's apartment complex later told investigators that Sade had specifically mentioned her upcoming date. She seemed excited. Not nervous, not hesitant, just a young woman looking forward to meeting someone new. By 4:15 p.m., phone records show that Sade and Maxwell were exchanging text messages. The content of these messages focused on finalizing their meeting location. They agreed to meet at the Twisted Fisherman, a popular waterfront restaurant in Milwaukee. These messages reveal nothing unusual. No red flags, no strange requests, just standard coordination between two people planning to meet for dinner. The digital trail shows Sade responding promptly and Anderson confirming their plans. At approximately 5:20 p.m., security cameras at the Twisted Fisherman captured Sade and Maxwell arriving. The footage shows them entering together, suggesting they may have met outside or arrived simultaneously. Inside, additional cameras documented them sitting at a table, ordering food, and engaging in conversation. Restaurant staff later recalled nothing unusual about the pair. They appeared like any other couple enjoying an early dinner, talking, eating, seemingly comfortable in each other's presence. One server remembered Sade laughing at something Anderson said. Another noted they ordered drinks along with their meal. The restaurant's transaction records confirm their presence. A receipt shows payment processed at approximately 6:15 p.m., with Anderson paying for the meal. Security footage then shows them leaving the establishment together. From the Twisted Fisherman, Sade and Maxwell made their way to Duke's on Water, a bar in downtown Milwaukee. The timeline, constructed through security camera footage from various businesses along their route, places them at Duke's between 6:30 p.m. and 9:06 p.m. During these hours at Duke's, Sade maintained contact with her social circle. At some point during the evening, the exact time remains unclear, she sent a Snapchat message to a close friend. This message would later become crucial evidence, as it represents the last known communication Sade initiated with anyone outside of her date. The content of this Snapchat, according to the friend who received it, was ordinary. Sade mentioned she was having a good time. She didn't express concerns or indicate feeling uncomfortable. This communication gives us a window into her state of mind. She felt safe enough to send a positive update to her friend. Multiple security cameras inside Duke's captured Sade and Maxwell throughout the evening. They ordered several rounds of drinks. They talked. At times, they were joined briefly by other patrons. Nothing in their body language, according to experts who later reviewed the footage, suggested distress on Sade's part or aggression from Anderson. This ordinary appearance makes what followed all the more disturbing. At 9:06 p.m., exterior cameras at Duke's on Water recorded Sade and Maxwell leaving the establishment. The footage shows them walking out together, with Sade walking slightly ahead of Anderson. They appear to be talking. Their body language remains casual. Street cameras track them for another block before they disappear from view. Based on subsequent evidence, investigators believe they decided to continue their evening at Anderson's residence. The next confirmed location comes from Sade's cell phone data. Her phone transmitted signals that placed it at or near Maxwell Anderson's home later that evening. This digital evidence establishes that she did indeed go to his residence, a decision that would have fatal consequences. What happened inside Anderson's home remains largely unknown. No cameras recorded the events. No witnesses were present. The full truth of what transpired may never be completely understood. What we do know comes from the aftermath. Forensic evidence recovered days later, statements from neighbors who reported no disturbances, and the grim discoveries that would follow. Sade's phone continued to transmit signals until the early morning hours of April 2nd. At some point during the night, all outgoing communications from Sade ceased. No more text messages. No more social media updates. No calls to friends or family. Her regular pattern of texting her mother daily was broken. Her usual social media activities stopped. The vibrant digital presence that had been part of her life disappeared completely. The final movements associated with Sade's phone present a disturbing sequence. In the early morning hours of April 2nd, tracking data shows her phone leaving Anderson's residence. However, the movement pattern is inconsistent with Sade's typical travel routes. The phone traveled through downtown Milwaukee toward Warnemont Park in Cudahy, Wisconsin, a location Sade had no known connection to. Surveillance cameras near the park captured distant images of a car and a figure moving toward Lake Michigan near the park's pump house. The timestamp on this footage aligns precisely with the phone's location data. But by this point, evidence suggests Sade Robinson was no longer alive. The last confirmed image of Sade alive comes from Duke's on Water at 9:06 p.m. on April 1st. She walks beside Maxwell Anderson, unaware that she would never return to her apartment, never attend her next class, never call her mother again. As they walked away from Duke's cameras that night, Sade still had her phone, her car keys, her ID, and all the hopes and plans she'd built for her future. In less than 24 hours, everything would change. The search for Sade Robinson was about to begin, but no one was looking for her yet. No one knew she was missing. No one knew she was in danger. And as April 2nd dawned, the horrific truth about what happened after she left Duke's on Water was about to emerge in the most shocking way possible. April 2nd, 2024. As Milwaukee residents went about their morning routines, the horrific aftermath of Sade Robinson's date with Maxwell Anderson began to surface across the city. The first crucial evidence came from Sade's phone. Though she was no longer sending messages, her device continued transmitting location data, creating a map of movements that would prove essential to investigators. In the early hours of April 2nd, this data showed Sade's phone leaving Maxwell Anderson's residence. The route tracked through downtown Milwaukee and eventually reached Warnemont Park in Cudahy, Wisconsin, a lakefront area approximately 10 miles from Anderson's home. Surveillance cameras at Warnemont Park captured distant footage of a vehicle and a figure descending a bluff near the park's pump house, exactly matching the time when Sade's phone registered at this location. The time correlation between the phone data and surveillance footage would later become a cornerstone of the investigation. What makes this movement pattern particularly significant is that Sade had no known connection to Warnemont Park. She had never mentioned the location to friends or family. She had no reason to be there, especially not in the middle of the night. Later that same morning, Milwaukee police responded to reports of a burned vehicle near 29th and Lisbon. When officers arrived, they found a 2020 Honda Civic, Sade's car, completely destroyed by fire. The condition of the vehicle suggested deliberate arson. In the trunk, investigators recovered several personal items belonging to Sade. clothing, and remnants of her cell phone. The discovery of these items immediately raised concerns about her safety and whereabouts. As police began investigating both the burned car and Sade's unexplained absence, the most shocking discovery came from Warnemont Park, the same location her phone had traveled to hours earlier. A park visitor found a severed human leg along the Lake Michigan shoreline near the pump house. The location precisely matched where surveillance cameras had captured that mysterious figure the night before. Forensic analysis would later confirm through DNA testing that this leg belonged to Sade Robinson. Over the next several days, additional remains were recovered from various locations around Milwaukee. A foot was found in a separate area. A torso was discovered at another location. An arm was recovered elsewhere in the city. Each discovery expanded the geographic scope of the crime scene, suggesting a calculated effort to dispose of evidence across multiple sites. This pattern of dispersed remains created an unprecedented challenge for investigators, who now had to coordinate searches across numerous locations while preserving forensic integrity. With these discoveries, the full investigation accelerated rapidly. Friends and family, already concerned by Sade's uncharacteristic silence, formally reported her missing. Law enforcement obtained comprehensive search warrants based on the growing body of evidence. The investigation now included multiple elements: digital tracking data from Sade's phone, surveillance footage from restaurants, bars, and the park, forensic analysis of the recovered remains, examination of the burned vehicle, interviews with friends, family, and anyone who may have seen Sade on April 1st. The forensic aspect of the investigation proved particularly challenging. With body parts scattered across different environments, maintaining evidence integrity required meticulous protocols. Medical examiners worked to confirm that all recovered remains belonged to the same victim, while forensic anthropologists assisted in searching for additional remains. DNA analysis confirmed what investigators feared. All of the recovered body parts belonged to Sade Robinson. This confirmation transformed the case from a missing person investigation to a homicide. As evidence mounted pointing to Maxwell Anderson, investigators secured warrants to search his residence. The findings from this search would provide crucial links in the investigation, connecting Anderson directly to the crime. With each piece of evidence, investigators built a more comprehensive picture of what happened after Sade left Dukes on Water. The systematic nature of evidence collection, from tracking data to forensic analysis, allowed police to move quickly despite the challenges of multiple crime scenes. The convergence of evidence, phone tracking data, surveillance footage, the burned car, and the scattered remains, created a comprehensive picture that led investigators to identify their prime suspect. Within days, they would be ready to make an arrest that would shock Milwaukee residents. The discovery of Sade's remains, scattered across Milwaukee, represents one of the most methodical attempts to conceal evidence in the city's recent history. The geographical distribution wasn't random. It demonstrated planning and deliberate efforts to complicate the investigation. Before we reveal what investigators uncovered about Maxwell Anderson and his past, information that puts this horrific crime into an even more disturbing context, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the impact of these types of stories. Learning about what happened to Sade is difficult. It forces us to confront the worst aspects of humanity. But understanding these cases is critical to recognizing warning patterns and protecting ourselves and our loved ones. If you're finding value in this documentary, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support enables us to continue shedding light on these important stories and potentially prevent future tragedies. Now, as investigators dug deeper into Maxwell Anderson's background, they discovered a history that should have raised numerous questions long before he ever met Sade Robinson. The profile that emerged was far more complex and troubling than anyone initially suspected. As investigators built their case against Maxwell Anderson, a disturbing portrait emerged of the 33-year-old man who had taken Sade Robinson on what would be her final date. Maxwell Anderson was not unknown to law enforcement prior to April 2024. Records revealed a history of concerning behavior spanning nearly a decade. In 2014 and 2015, Anderson had been arrested multiple times for disorderly conduct and domestic disputes. These incidents established a pattern of volatility and aggression that would only become more relevant as the investigation progressed. His record also included allegations of drunk driving and physical altercations, suggesting a person who struggled with impulse control and potentially violent tendencies. While some colleagues from his jobs as a bartender and security guard described him as affable during work hours, his legal history painted a very different picture. What investigators determined with certainty was that Sade Robinson and Maxwell Anderson had no prior relationship before April 1, 2024. Their first date at the Twisted Fisherman restaurant was genuinely their first meeting. This fact makes what followed even more disturbing. Anderson's actions weren't the result of a relationship conflict or personal history with Sade. They appeared to be premeditated. When police executed search warrants at Anderson's residence, they discovered evidence beyond what was initially reported. In addition to the items mentioned earlier, investigators found multiple cleaning supplies recently used throughout the home, specific areas where attempts had been made to remove potential evidence, locations where furniture appeared to have been rearranged, hidden areas where personal items were concealed. One of the most telling aspects of Anderson's home was not what was found, but rather what appeared to be missing. Investigators noted gaps in expected household items, suggesting Anderson may have disposed of objects potentially connected to the crime. According to information from confidential sources during the investigation, Anderson may have prepared tools in his home specifically intended for dismemberment. This preparation suggests a level of planning that extends beyond a spontaneous act of violence. The manner in which Anderson disposed of evidence demonstrated knowledge of forensic investigation techniques. By dispersing remains across multiple locations, burning Sade's vehicle, and attempting to destroy her phone, he created deliberate obstacles for investigators. These actions required time, planning, and familiarity with how police might track such crimes. What makes the case particularly disturbing is the timeline of Anderson's actions after the crime. Phone tracking data and surveillance footage suggest he transported Sade's remains to multiple locations over a period of hours, all while maintaining an outward appearance of normalcy. The sequence required transportation to multiple disposal sites, driving Sade's vehicle to an isolated location for burning, returning to his residence, cleaning potential evidence. Each step demanded time, planning, and an extraordinary level of detachment. The methodical nature of these actions contradicts any possibility that Anderson acted in a moment of passion or without understanding the consequences of his behavior. On April 4, 2024, just 3 days after Sade Robinson was last seen alive, police arrested Maxwell Anderson. The arrest came after intensive forensic work connecting the scattered evidence to a single suspect. The Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office filed multiple serious charges against Anderson: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, arson. Each charge carried significant potential penalties, with the homicide charge alone bringing the possibility of life imprisonment without parole. Following his arrest, Anderson appeared in court for a bail hearing. Given the severity of the charges and the evidence presented, the court set bail at $5 million, an amount that ensured Anderson would remain in custody while awaiting trial. The prosecution's strategy centered on the accumulation of evidence from multiple sources. While some elements of the case relied on circumstantial connections, the overall body of evidence created a compelling narrative. Surveillance footage placing Anderson with Sade at multiple locations. Digital tracking data showing the movement of Sade's phone after her disappearance. Forensic evidence recovered from Anderson's home. The discovery of Sade's remains at locations connected to the phone tracking data. The burned vehicle with Sade's personal items. Defense attorneys requested additional time to review the extensive digital recordings and forensic evidence, arguing that more scrutiny was needed given the circumstantial nature of some connections. However, prosecutors emphasized the consistency across multiple independent lines of evidence. As Maxwell Anderson awaited trial in custody, the impact of Sade Robinson's death extended far beyond the courtroom. A community was left to grapple with questions about safety, justice, and how such a promising young life could be taken so suddenly. The loss of Sade, a criminal justice student with dreams of serving in the Air Force, created ripples throughout Milwaukee, sparking conversations about dating app safety and violence against women. Her story became a catalyst for change, as family members, friends, and even strangers united to ensure her memory would not be forgotten. As of this documentary's creation, Maxwell Anderson remains in custody on $5 million bail as the judicial process continues. The prosecution has built its case on multiple layers of evidence: surveillance recordings, digital tracking data, forensic examinations, and witness testimony. Prosecutors have presented extensive digital evidence, including surveillance footage and phone tracking data, creating a timeline that contradicts any possible defense claims. Expert witnesses have methodically walked jurors through the technical aspects of the investigation, explaining how multiple independent evidence streams all point to Anderson's involvement. The defense has consistently requested additional time to review the extensive digital recordings and forensic data. They've argued that some evidence lacks direct links to Anderson, questioning the handling of certain materials and suggesting alternative interpretations of key findings. As the case moves toward its conclusion, legal observers note its potential influence on similar cases involving victims from historically marginalized communities, particularly focusing on investigation thoroughness and evidence preservation. In Milwaukee, the response to Sade Robinson's death transcended the courtroom. Vigils illuminated city parks as community members gathered to honor her memory. Many wore pink, Sade's favorite color, creating a visual representation of collective grief and solidarity. Murals and memorial plaques now stand in neighborhoods throughout Milwaukee, ensuring that Sade's memory remains visible. These tributes serve not only as remembrances, but as reminders of the ongoing need for justice and safety. Sade's mother, Sheena Scarborough, emerged as a powerful advocate in the wake of this tragedy. Her calls for accountability extend beyond the perpetrator to the systems and institutions responsible for protecting young women. Her advocacy has inspired community organizations to partner with local government representatives on prevention initiatives. The case prompted widespread discussions about dating app safety, violence against women, and protection for vulnerable individuals. Educational campaigns now use Sade's story to highlight personal safety practices and community vigilance. Schools and community centers incorporate these lessons into their programs, emphasizing the importance of support networks. Perhaps most powerfully, Sade's memory lives on through those who knew her. Former classmates speak of her determination. Co-workers remember her kindness. Family members treasure memories of her cooking seafood for her grandmother and planning trips to Jamaica. They recall her ambitions for military service and her dedication to criminal justice studies. Sade Robinson's life, cut short at just 19 years old, continues to matter. Her story reminds us that behind every headline is a person whose absence leaves a permanent void in countless lives. Thank you for joining us in remembering Sade Robinson. Stories like hers are difficult to tell, but essential to understand. By examining what happened, we honor her memory and potentially help others recognize dangerous situations before they escalate. If this documentary impacted you, please subscribe to Truly Criminal Network and share this video. Your engagement helps us continue documenting important stories that might otherwise be forgotten. For Sade Robinson, and for countless others whose voices have been silenced, we keep telling these stories. We keep seeking justice. We keep working toward a world where such tragedies become increasingly rare.